parts of Trump's campaign was talking about political correctness. So Kyle, I want to get your thoughts on this. After a few years, how are we doing on that issue? Where do you draw the line? And generally, how do you think our political climate has improved or gotten worse since that time?
I mean, honestly, this kind of bores me, this topic, because it's like, okay, whatever, political correctness, I think I'm relatively politically incorrect. I say things that piss people off all the time. I mean, it is what it is, but my problem with the right is that oftentimes they take this term of political correctness and what they really want to do is use that as an excuse to say things that are factually incorrect. So when Donald Trump goes out there and he says, for example, like he did on the campaign trail, that we need a total and complete shutdown of Muslims coming into this country, that's not politically incorrect, that's just incorrect. You're just a dick, because there's like 1 billion people who are Muslims, and they're not all guilty for the sins of Al-Qaeda. So yeah, that's my take on it. I think I'm politically incorrect myself, but I think that oftentimes people on the right use it to get away with saying things that are just factually incorrect.
Charlie.
So I guess the question is, are we more or less politically? I mean, look, it depends on where you live in the country. I mean, in California, it's perfectly fine to border jump or line cut to come into our country, but if you misgender someone, you could face prison time in California. So
that's totally not true.
It is. The law is on the books. There is a law on the books that if you're an employee of the state government of California and you misgender someone as an employee of the state of California intentionally, you could potentially go to prison for workplace harassment.
That is speech police. This is hyperbolic nonsense. We have the First Amendment, and that's the supreme law of the land.
Opinion, you're not entitled to your own facts. I visit college campuses all the time. A lot of what you say is...
You're so oppressed, bro. Go wear a diaper again.
I visit college campuses all the time, and I'll tell you, Kyle, if you saw, and I think if you're intellectually honest, you'll agree with this, that the speech police that happens all across the country, where it's telling people that they can't say certain things, where they're cracking down on saying America's the greatest country in the history of the world. I have to say that these are the types of things that should be really concerning. And there is a death of free speech in this country, and people like Bill Maher really respect that and understand that.
I agree with that too.
That stems from political correctness, right? That comes from the speech police, but you're really only seeing it on one side.
No, that's not true at all. I believe in free speech, which is why I think Colin Kaepernick should be in the NFL right now.
Yes. Well, Colin Kaepernick was never fired from the NFL because he decided to kneel during the national anthem. He's not in the NFL because he's a horrible quarterback.
What? Yeah, look at all these NFL experts over here. I'm sure they know.
If Colin Kaepernick was any sort of decent quarterback and not throw 14 interceptions and only 8 touchdowns in his last season with the San Francisco 49ers, of which they are now undefeated thanks to Jimmy Garoppolo doing a lot better than they were under Colin Kaepernick.
And the new coach.
This is very interesting. Do I believe that Colin Kaepernick had a right to be a fool and kneel during the national anthem? Absolutely. Being civilly disobedient is a right. But you know what? I also have a right to call him unpatriotic and disrespectful for kneeling during the national anthem. As a kind of tribute to our best.
Excuse me, why is it that when left-wing people protest and when they dissent, all of a sudden it's unpatriotic and you hate America? Why can't it just be, no, these are my ideas and I think these would fix the country even if you don't agree? See, I'm willing to grant you that whatever you say, you actually are saying it because you want to fix the country. But why is it that you don't give lefties that respect? All of a sudden when there's somebody on the left, you think, oh no, it's because you hate America. That's why you're saying X, Y, and Z.
Well, I'll tell you exactly why. So the tradition of the national anthem that was incorporated post-World War II in the National Football League and was instituted was to try to remember veteran sacrifice during World War II, the Korean War, and
the
Vietnam
Red Scare.
War. Thank you for your service, my son. Thank you for your service. And the reason that Colin Kaepernick was being selfish is during a moment when you're supposed to be somber and reverent, when you're supposed to reflect on the blood and the sacrifice that veterans put, he decided to make the cameras point at him. Not point at the veterans, not point at the flag. It was selfish for him to do that, to try to misrepresent a highly complex issue that is criminal justice reform at a very bizarre time to do it during the singular time in a sports ceremony. We take a moment to remove our hats and put our hands over our heart to remember the veterans that gave everything so that we can live in the greatest country ever to exist in the history of the world.
Charlie, whenever there's something that happens, like in Ferguson, Missouri, there's a police brutality case, and then people riot. What do people like Charlie say?
They destroy buildings? Yeah, I'm going to speak against that.
Yeah, but what do you say when that happens? They go, you know what? My only issue with these people is if only they would protest police brutality through peaceful methods, I would be okay with it. And then
also have a right to critique his decision. And so
Right, and you
the
have a right to
mayor
be
of
wrong.
Baltimore during the movement, the mayor of Baltimore, while all this was happening, remember she said, we need to give our people space to riot. I mean, there's nothing admirable about destroying property in your own community when you're trying to protest injustice or brutality. I'm not sure what kind of argument
Charlie,
you're making.
this the point. Right over your head. I agree with you. Rioting is bad. That's why I think what Colin Kaepernick did is good, because he's protesting through peaceful means.
Of course, sure. So, and I'm saying he was being a selfish individual that was
Because you
all about
disagree with
himself during a ceremony that was also about veterans. So we're talking in circles here, broader about political correctness. I'm not the one that's going to say Colin Kaepernick should not have a right to do that. In fact, I defended his right to be incorrect and his right to be selfish and his right to be wrong. That's what makes this American experiment so special. I will say this, and the rise of political correctness and the rise of division in this country, you only see political violence predominantly on one side, and that is Antifa. You do not see Trump supporters waving outside of Bernie Sanders rallies, punching them in the face. You do not see people wearing MAGA hats, assaulting gay journalists in the streets of Portland where no people are arrested. You do not see
White
people wearing
nationalist
MAGA hats,
terrorism.
punching left-wing people in the face. Something of which, very important point, Kyle. Guess what? I denounce it, the president denounces it, yet half
It
the
doesn't
people running
exist.
for
You
the
said
Democrat
political
Party
violence is only
have
on the
not
left.
denounced Antifa. Why do people running for the Democrat nomination not denounce Antifa?
Oh, yeah,
A
Bernie Sanders is
paramilitary
pro-Antifa.
organization
You
that
got
goes
it.
around and pounds people on the head if they dare disagree with them. Could you imagine for a second if people were wearing MAGA hats and going and beating journalists in the streets?
I can, 'cause
they
they
would
did
be
it at
rightfully
rallies.
arrested.
Yeah, right? Literally.
So we want to talk about culture. Show me where conservative Antifa is. Show me a well-funded, well-organized an organization that was not denounced by the president or people like it that go after political opponents. You can't find it, and there's a reason why the Democrats will not denounce Antifa. It's because if you want to see the face of the Democrat Party, I'll show it to you. They're wearing a mask.
All right, Kyle gets the last word on this.
Listen, Charlie, you're not debating the Democrats. You're debating Kyle Kulinski. If you just asked me, it would have been very simple.
What do you think of Antifa?
Do I denounce Antifa? Yes. I denounce political violence. But I think it's really interesting that you started this whole rant by acting like political violence is only on the left. That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life.
I said predominantly. So show me a singular instance where there are people wearing MAGA hats waiting outside of a leading Democrat.
I'll do you one better. How about a guy named Caesar Sayoc who murdered people with a fucking MAGA hat on?
And he sent bombs to Republicans, he sent bombs to Democrats. That guy was mentally unhinged, and I'm not going to defend him. And
Trump
I'll
was a
denounce him.
Democrat, too.
Or how about the shooter in Dayton, Ohio, that said Elizabeth Warren was his hero, and then he went and shot 10 people? What about that, Kyle?
Oh,
We can
Elizabeth
go
Warren,
back
yeah.
and forth all day long. with
Real
political-
dangerous
Or how about
Okay.
the guy that shot up the congressional baseball field that loved Bernie Sanders? We can go back all day long.
All right, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on from this. All right, let's move to another.